Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Jin, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the one of the most important movements in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that is called the hip escape or the shrimp. All right, so let's get started here.
So from here, if I shrimp, right, I don't want to bring my shoulders to my knees. See?
Okay, so from here, I'm going to back up a little bit. All right, so now what I demonstrated there was, moving with gaps. In other words, I'm moving my shoulders down towards my knees, okay, which would be, moving with a lot of gaps. And it's also going to be difficult because if someone, let's say, was putting pressure into our shoulders to keep us flat, right, trying to keep you down, and you are trying to like fight at that point, right, and you're trying to like bring your shoulders towards your knees to shrimp, right, it's going to be really, really difficult to do, okay, because you're fighting basically right here at that point, okay, at the shoulder point, right? So where the pressure is coming in, you're basically trying to push that shoulder while someone is trying to lay you flat at the same point. So what's happening is that area right there, okay, if you're using the shoulder line as a fulcrum, the distance between you and the pressure coming in to lay you down, the distance is really small, okay? So we know from the equation of work that if the distance is small, then you're going to need a lot of force to do the work, right? Because work equals force times distance, right? So in this case, you're basically at the point of impact or at the point of pressure, invading pressure. So that distance is very small. Okay, so that means it's gonna require a big force. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll link a previous video where I talk about the formula for work and the formula for force, and how if you want to be gap free inside your body and you want to search for efficiency in movement, then you're going to want to study those equations and how they apply to your movements. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll link that video, and I'll link it up here so where you'll see a little information symbol, and go ahead and press that to get to that video. Okay, so what we want to do, of course, is use the middle fulcrum, okay? But right now, I'm just showing you the movement, demonstrating the movement from an inefficient standpoint, which is trying to push the shoulders down. So let's continue from here.
To my knees. See? This is super weak. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move my hips away, and that's going to bring my shoulders to my knees.
Okay. So there you see I've used the middle fulcrum, okay? And using the middle fulcrum, we know now is if the pressure, the invading pressure is up here and trying to push you down to make you flat, okay? If that pressure is invading you there, all right, but you're handling it through the rotation of the middle fulcrum, which is your hip line, okay, with a tucked tailbone. You got to make sure that your tailbone is tucked, okay, or you're just going to have a gap in your spine and at your hip line. So if you haven't watched all my previous videos, then I suggest you go back and watch the videos, especially in the playlist that I have called the Nuts and Bolts, my method, the Nuts and Bolts, okay? So those are really, really important to understanding my point of view in the search for efficiency, okay? So now, back to the lesson. If we are using the middle fulcrum here, and then you see now is that the distance from the hips, okay, to the point of impact of the pressure, the distance is much greater, okay? And because of the equation of work, we know that because the distance is bigger, you can do the same amount of work with less force, okay? So this is what we're trying to do, and that's why I always talk about using the middle fulcrum, and in this case, the body fulcrum. The middle would be the hip line, okay? So it's rotation of the hip, okay? So let's start from here.
My knees. That's it. You understand?
Okay, now you see how by rotating the hips, okay, both hips, and right now they're rotating in a clockwise motion. That rotation there, it has an effect of bringing your shoulders down, right, and meeting your knees, and you're almost like your knees and your shoulders will want to meet, because the middle fulcrum is rotating and it's creating space by moving away, okay, through that rotation. So it's pulling the two ends towards each other, okay? And when you do that, you're going to have really, really good leverage, and your movements will be more efficient. But again, once I do not forget, you need to keep your tailbone tucked, right? And you need to focus to remove all the gaps in your shoulders, right? In your hips, in your elbows, in your knees, right? That way you're gap free, and especially your spine, right? All right, so let's go from here.
I'm not trying to bring my knees to my chest, right, like this, to get the shrimp, and I'm not moving my chest down to my knees. I'm moving my hips away. That brings my shoulders to my knees, which makes it very powerful. So, but if you didn't know, let's say I didn't know that skill, okay? So I keep diving my shoulders, right? But it looks the same as if I retreat my hips. So the move to the outside, if you look at me, it's hard to tell.
Okay, so I talk about right here, I talk about retreating the hips, okay? And that's, I actually, I don't want you to think of it like a retreat of the hips, okay? I want you to think of it as a rotation of the hips, okay? So you're not actually, let's say, moving the hips in a straight line backwards. What's causing that is the hips rotating, okay? And through the rotation, that's going to make your hips move back, okay? So I just want to clarify that.
So the move to the outside, if you look at me, it's hard to tell. You understand? You can't tell. It's hard to pick up, right? But if you do it correctly with the skill, you'll feel the difference. It's huge, right? Using the skeletal frame, right, versus muscle frames or incorrect mechanical advantage. Right?
Okay, so there I talk about muscle frames, right? And I just want to say that if you, and I tell this to anyone who is interested in studying my method, and they are young and they are fast and they are athletic, okay? And they ask me, about, generating force and things like this. I tell them, look, if you're young and you're strong and you're fast and you're very athletic, then I always say is use it. There's nothing. What I want people to understand is that whether you use high level athleticism or you use high level focus through skeletal frames, okay, they both work. Okay, so I'm not trying to say that one way is better than the other. Okay, because they both work. If you look at the equation for force, the generation of force, force is equal to mass times speed. So if you're using big mass and low speed, right, which would be efficient, or you're using high speed but little mass, they both generate big force. So I'm not trying to, if you are very athletic and you are very fast, then and you're able to generate big force, I'm saying go for it. I think that's great. I'm just saying that me or folks that are older and past their prime, they're going to have a harder and harder time if they are relying on that athletic engine, because we all know that as you age, that is going to go away, right? And if that's your primary way of generating force, then what's going to happen is that your ability to generate big force is going to keep declining, and you're not going to be able to train at a high level as you get older, right? And I created this method for myself so that I can continue to train at a high level as I get older and older, right? So that my skill does not keep decreasing because I'm relying on an athletic engine that I'm not going to be able to maintain as I get older. So I needed to switch engines and find something different. And so I started to understand or started to create this method of utilizing connection, weight distribution, angle changes, and leverages to create gap-free environment, to create skeletal frames, right? To understand efficiency in the body. So I know this is a long speech, right? And I apologize for that, but I just think it's such an important topic, right? So I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but all I'm saying is that as you get older, one is going to be more and more efficient, right? And that's it. That's all I can say, right? So if you are young and you are fast, go for it. If you are older and you're getting weaker and slower, then you realize that you have to change the way you're generating force, or you're just going to really get hurt training against very, very aggressive or athletic guys, right? So it's going to be an issue. So this is why, again, all I can say is that using my method is just more efficient. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just more efficient as you get older. Okay?
Using correct mechanical advantage. Yes. You see? Now you're using the middle focal. Yes.
All right, so that's it. I will continue to discuss stand-up, wrestling, how to stop wrestling, being taken down, on the ground, submission grappling. I'm gonna try to cover the entire scope of ranges of combat, but not from a standpoint of like styles. What I'm going to be really, really talking about, investigating, is how to use my method of frames, skeletal frames, and how to use how it's a unified method that you can use to create efficient force, to create force efficiently in any range of combat and in any style of combat. So it's all about the exploration of your body and what's going on inside your body. So that's the part that we're going to be discussing and researching and sharing. So hope you enjoyed the lesson. We're going to continue practice, and let me know what the results are, right? And I'll talk to you guys soon.